Hello and welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute-a-day podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse, recorded here in the dining room of the Bible Bistro, located in Sharonville, Ohio. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Come on in here and sit down with me. Let that screen door slam shut behind you. Grab yourself something hot or cold to drink. And we'll open our Bibles up today. We're going to look at Psalm 104, Part 1 today. All this week, just Part 1. Next week, we'll do Part 2. We've got a lot of Part 1, Part 2 Psalms coming up. So we'll be here in this little section for a little while. And it's just so good. It's wonderful. It is yummy, all the good things that the psalmist tells us. We saw yesterday how this psalm begins like Psalm 103 began, and it ends like, and it begins like Psalm 103 ended, with "Bless the Lord, O my soul." So we have a companion psalm. This psalm is also about the greatness of God, whereas Psalm 103, we saw the benefits of God to his people. Here we're just going to talk about the greatness of God, how great he is. And we started yesterday with his chambers in the waters. He walks on the wind. He is clothed with honor and majesty. He puts on light like he does a garment. And then we had verse 4, who makes his angels spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. So he has, not only in this great house, a chariot. Not only does he walk on the wings of the wind, but he has ministers, those that minister to him, and before him, those are the angels. The apostle takes this in Hebrews chapter 1, and he declares that that Jesus is the Son of God. He's not an angel. He's arguing that in Hebrews chapter 1. And he said there in verse 6 of Hebrews 1, "And again, when he bringeth in the first begotten into the world, he saith, Let all the angels of God worship him. And of the angels he saith, Who maketh his angels spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. But unto the Son he saith, Thy throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of thy kingdom." So he quotes from Psalm 104 here in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 7, to make the argument that the angels are one thing, but the Son is something different. He is God himself. And then he quotes from Psalm 110 in verse 8 of Hebrews chapter 1. So we have that connection with the New Testament right there in verse 4. Now today we're going to look at 5 through 7. Who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. Thou coverest it with the deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. At thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of thy thunder they hastened away. Now you notice that he ends the who section there in verse 5. Who laid the foundations of the earth? This is how great God is. He wants to build the earth, and he wants it to last. So that if you want a building to last, you have to make sure that the foundation is good. If you put your money in the foundation of any building, that building is going to last, and it's going to be strong, because everything depends on a strong foundation. And you notice that he laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. He wanted something that was going to stay around, and guess what? It has, and it's because it's got a good foundation. The Lord laid the good foundation. He covered it. It said there in verse 6, you covered it with the deep as with a garment. Now here it is. Again, we're still talking to God. You covered it with a deep as with a garment. The water stood above the mountains. At thy rebuke they fled. At the voice of thy thunder they hastened away. You go back to Genesis chapter 1. And in Genesis chapter 1 it says that he divided the waters from the land. So this is just a retelling of that here in Psalm 104. You covered the deep as with a garment. The water stood above the mountains. At thy rebuke they fled. So we're in creation because in verse 5 we have the foundations of the earth. He covers the earth with the deep ocean as with a garment. The water stood above mountains. And then God spoke, and he divided the water from the land. The dry land appeared because God spoke. At thy rebuke they fled. So he told the waters to get away from those mountaintops. Get away from there. And the voice of thy thunder they hastened away. And so he set a boundary for the deep. They shouldn't cross a certain boundary. And the Lord has set that boundary. So here we have the deep, the waters, God speaking. Genesis chapter 1 is being retold here, and really in quite a beautiful way, isn't it? Something that we don't have in Genesis chapter 1, but now here in the commentary of Psalm 104, we have what happened. God spoke and they fled. They haste away. Join me again tomorrow and we'll look at verses 8, 9, and 10 here on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. For more fresh and delicious Bible studies, podcasts, books, and more, check out the Bible Bistro online and on YouTube. Join me again next time for Daily Dose Radio.